Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Entrepreneurship to the Point, where we aim to inform, equip, and inspire. I'm Kateko Mbambo, Program Manager at Property Point, and today we're having our first Equip session for the month of August in partnership with the Women's Property Network. I'm joined by an awesome panel of women, and you'll get to meet them shortly. But first, the topic of the day. We're talking access to markets and procurement readiness. The aim today is to give relevant and practical information to procurement readiness, typical requirements for compliance, and access to opportunities in the property sector. Access to markets and opportunities plays a key role in growing a sustainable business, and knowing how to position yourself to access these opportunities will set you apart from your competitors. That said, we hope you find the session insightful. If this is your first time on our platform, please follow us on our social media platforms. We'd love to have you as part of our ETTP family. We are available on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube as Entrepreneurship to the Point. We'd like to know who you are and where you're watching us from, so please use the chat function at the bottom of your screen. And if you're fast enough, I might just give a shout out to you. We want you to be part of our conversation this afternoon, so feel free to send us your questions and comments on the chat function. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Thuli Mpunche, who co-hosts the session with me this afternoon. Thuli is the chairperson of the Women's Property Network in Gauteng, and she's also an established property investment professional with extensive experience in both the private and public sector. Thuli will introduce the panelists as well as kick off the session. Welcome, Thuli, and take it away.
Thank you, NK, for such kind words. Welcome to everybody. Yes, good to have you joining us this afternoon. So, Nkateko, just to kick off, from the WPN side, we are welcoming members from various regions within the WPN. We've got members from Gauteng, we've got members from Cape Town, as well as KZN. So I would like to mention a special welcome to everybody from the WPN side. So just to give you a bit of context in terms of how we got to this partnership with the Property Point. The WPN has members who are both in corporate South Africa, as well as members who are entrepreneurs. Given the synergies we identified from the work that Property Point is already doing, we saw it then fit to jump at the opportunity to collaborate with them. So again, a thank you to NK and her team for allowing us the platform to share. I know you guys usually host these kinds of events, so we're very privileged and honored to be able to partner up with you guys on this platform. So I'm just going to jump into it. We're very excited in terms of the speakers we have joining us this afternoon. We have Ms. Sandy Butuma. I'll go through their bios just now, just to make mention of the names. We also have Sis Numisa, who's joining us from Moana Properties. So in terms of Sandy's bio, actually her full name is Sandisiwe Butuma. She's MD at Azaro Azaro Quantity Surveyors. Sandy started her career in 1999 as a trainee at Batuleng Wallace Rubenheimer in Woodmead, where she gained training in commercial building projects. She joined BTKM in Greenside in 2001, where she served as a junior quantity surveyor on commercial building projects, and also received special training in the empowerment auditing the Meropa Entertainment World and Casino in Petersburg. She then went on to join TFMC, where she gained a wealth of experience in facilities management. She's acted as head of QS in Cape Town, where she was reporting to the head office in Pretoria. She was also afforded the opportunity to conduct technical audits countrywide with Telkom's team of auditors. She's progressed in her career by joining Brian Heinberg, an associate in 2005, where she worked in prestigious projects of Maia Luxury Resort in the Seychelles, and she's also completed commercial projects within Gauteng, gaining herself an associateship position at Brian Heinberg and Associates, also in a partner within the same firm. In 2011, she joined Pentet Quantity Surveyors as an executive director and a shareholder. She also served on the firm's BE portfolio as a chair. Her recent departure in 2015 propelled her to start up her own firm, which is 67% Black, female controlled and managed. Wow, Sandy, that is a stellar bio. Okay, so, and then in terms of Ms. Ncumisa, it's Ms. Ncumisa Dube. She's currently the head of supply chain in Moana Properties. She's got well over 20 years worth of experience at executive level in supply chain management, transformation, consulting, finance, and administration. She has held positions that have provided her with exposure, enhanced skills, and the ability to integrate cross-functional disciplines within an organization and across networks of organizations. Her experience covers a full spectrum of inbound supply chain management, from strategy development and implementation, strategic sourcing, enterprise and supplier development, stakeholder management, which is from an internal and an external perspective. She also has experience in risk management, compliance, human capital management, budgeting, data analysis, demand planning, market research, policy and procedure development and execution, implementation of continuous improvement projects, change management, inventory management, contract management, and negotiations. So the audience, as you can see, we have some very, very strong women who are joining us. I mean, reading through those bios, I'm getting goosebumps. So welcome, Sandy, welcome, Ms. Ncumisa. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. As NK alluded, this will be an interactive session. We'll also be posing some of the questions to NK as well. So I hope, NK, you also read. So just to kick things off, I'm going to start off with you, NK. So I mean, we're expanding our viewers, understanding of the Property Point program. So what would you say in terms of what you guys are offering? Who is your target market to start? Who is the audience? And do you have any geographical limitation in terms of the applications to join the program that you receive? Do you have to focus on specific regions, or is the program open to everyone?
Thank you, Tuli. So at Property Point, we run a 2-year incubation acceleration program. We focus on businesses within the property development and maintenance value chain. And that's mainly because we have a strong focus on access to markets. So this will typically be businesses such as quantity surveyors, architects, project managers, plumbers, electricians, security services, just to mention a few. We have intakes in Gauteng, KZN, and the Western Cape, and that is purely a function of our access to markets focus, as our partners have a higher concentration of assets in those provinces. And really the aim of the program, Tuli, is to empower businesses through our business development methodology, which is really based on 5 pillars, some of which we're going to touch on during the conversation as it advances this afternoon. The first pillar is around compliance, which really looks at issues like your CIPC registration, your SARS, health and safety, compliance with industry bodies, your COIDA and liability cover, And the second element is around business operations and capacity building. Here we look at issues around business processes, your staffing, capacity to deliver, and any equipment and technologies which are required in your trade. And then the third element is around sales and marketing. And this is really the heartbeat of the business. And we look at issues around sales systems and processes, relationship building, which is really key in our space, brand awareness, engagement, deal closing, and client retention. And the fourth element is around financial management. This looks at financing operations and expansions, bookkeeping, cash flow projections, budgeting, and variance analysis and financial reporting. And the last and the most important element is around access to markets. This is conducted in ways of networking sessions, business linkages, and intros to opportunity holders. So I think to then answer your question holistically, Tuli, is that we focus on those specific areas in the property sector because of our strong links with access to markets.
Okay. Thank you for that, NK. Sandy, and I think I'm going to bring you in here. Also just understanding that you've also gone through the Property Point program. We'll touch on that experience shortly. The first question I would like to pose to you is basically, how does a business build its professional brand such that it's able to stand out from its competitors and also it's able to remain relevant in this ever-changing operating environment we find ourselves in?
Thanks, Julie, and good afternoon to everyone on the network. I'm really humbled to be on this platform, and happy Women's Month to all the women. Julie, to be honest with you, because we are in a very regulated environment, we've got statutory bodies that actually govern most of actually our activities and also our business operations. And the business part has got also its own corporate governance and actually fiduciary duties, which actually are governed by the Companies Act. So to balance the two, for me, what I've found to be actually equitable commercially and also to ensure that we comply with everything. I think professionally, I would say that the credibility as a professional, perpetuates the reputation of an individual or the collective that actually of the founding members or the people that actually make up what the business has to be. In terms of positioning yourself and finding your value proposition in the market, it's very important. Your reputation and your background informs most of that. I think the capacity of 80% of it is informed by the reputation, which has to be an uncompromising integrity that you hold in the industry. I have to say that actually Property Point, in terms of the positioning, has played a pivotal role as far as Azaro's success, because as Nkateko says, just actually alluded that it's a 2-year program. I have to say that now I'm also about to graduate, which has been a phenomenal period for our business. And we just celebrated 5 years in the business. So when I joined Property Point, I had just actually about to finish off the 2-year cycle. I had just finished the 2-year cycle, going on my 3rd year. So the last 2 years for us to get to our 5th year, literally, I think Property Point has been that right, stepping stone for the business, from actually being a startup to being actually starting to assert itself for sustainability and growth, which most of the businesses, if I can say, after 2 years of actually saying you're a startup, it's very easy for business to be stagnant. And I think Property Point, have got good data to actually to guide businesses like mine on how to actually move the business forward.
Okay, thank you, Sandy. And I think perhaps let's not take it for granted. Perhaps just maybe give us a quick overview of Azaro Quantity Surveyors. What's your business about? I mean, it does say quantitative surveys, but let's hear it from you what your business is about.
Yeah, you're right, Tuli. We just a fully quantity surveying firm. We our services are purely quantity surveying. You know, we don't have project management. Yes, principal agency forms part of the ambits of our scope. So, and also program management, but project management has got a different body in our industry. So we just purely, I mean, the 20 years of my CV, it's purely quantity surveying. I think the only diversion that I've had is actually just play in the space of, you know, the sub-markets within the quantity surveying space of actually facilities management, but still purely being a quantity surveyor. So if I can give you just an overview of the projects that we do the whole spectrum from your retail space, the retail developments, whether actually green or brownfield. We do also.
The camera. I do have a message that says the host has asked you to start your video.
Also, in terms of insurance replacement values for big corporates, healthcare facilities, academic facilities. We've even merged to mining, which is actually a new sub-market for us. And we've also gone into infrastructure, which is actually your water and civils. And we've been actually for the past 4 years successfully, and we still have contracts of up to another 5 years. So literally, we have even actually increased our footprint. We are in Africa. We've just completed a resort in Namibia, which was voted as actually the top 10 globally. And healthcare facilities, the private, you know, healthcare facilities, we quite very firm in that. I think that, yeah.
Very exciting stuff. Thank you for that intro. So I'm going to move on to Sis Nomisa. I heard her speaking before. I hope we're all good in terms of receiving the first question. Sis Nomisa, you know, again, we don't want to take it for granted that everybody knows what Moana Properties is about. So perhaps let's kick off by you, please, describing some of the services that are embedded within the operating environment, you know, that are then outsourced to external suppliers, and also just in general, you know, who is Moana Properties?
Thank you so much, Tuli. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can.
Thank you so much. Thank you to the listeners as well. And happy Women's Month. To kick off, Moana, just to give context as to who Moana Properties is. Moana was established in 2015, December, and was officially launched in March 2016, with the view of managing directly owned PIC properties. By PIC, I mean the Public Investment Corporation properties, which are valued at about 11.5 billion rands. Moana Properties manages a mixed portfolio with 30% of in retail, 52% in commercial properties, and the difference being industrial, light industrial. And it is, the portfolio is actually spread across the country. Moana Properties is wholly owned by Pareto Group. Pareto Group, which manages a portfolio of the 7 large shopping centers in South Africa. Amongst those, your Menlyn Shopping Center, Cresta, Westgate Shopping Center, Southgate, Mimosa in Bloemfontein, the Pavilion in Durban, and Tiger Valley in Cape Town. Amongst other things or services that we offer in our operating environment, security services for the properties that we manage and we play a facilitation role on, waste management, you know, cleaning and hygiene services, landscaping, the management of escalators, general repairs, and plumbing and your electrical work, services that are directly linked to managing these properties. These services, we don't actually offer them as Moana Properties, but we always seek service providers to actually come in and actually perform those services on our behalf.
Okay, thank you for that. And then just in terms of the demography of your typical supplier, what would you say are the salient requirements for a company or an SMME to be onboarded as a supplier?
Well, a typical supplier, we do give preference to suppliers that are over 51% Black owned. We also give a lot of focus and attention on your EMEs, and your QSEs, your small and your medium enterprises. We also take into consideration Black women ownership, and of course, compliance insofar as our requirements are concerned.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. So I think on this point, Sandy, I'm just going to come back to you. Again, we briefly spoke about the fact that you are finishing off the property program, looking to graduate shortly. So how have you found the program, right? And in terms of beefing up on your skill set for the company, and also just at the back of the services that Ms. Nomisa is referring to, they may not necessarily be relevant, particularly to your business as a QS company, but how have you then found the Property Point program offering in terms of then ensuring that you are well positioned to be able to bid for some of those opportunities?
Truly, what Ms. Nomisa just mentioned in terms of their primary requirements, I'm happy to say that I'm one of their actually consultants. So she's actually they're very strict about that, and they do empower quite a lot of small businesses. So actually, they have been a contributor to my 5-year cycle, and I'm looking forward to another 5-year with them. So in terms of Property Point, when I had just remember that my 15 years before I had just before I started Azaro, I was purely a professional. I was in a commercial environment. So the skill set of being an entrepreneur, the devil is in the detail, that you actually have a business plan, but you have to actually implement the business plan. And very often, as a technical, professional, the operations and the strategic view of actually running a business is completely different from actually the profession of running a project. No matter whether actually Sis Nomisa, they're doing actually a 1 billion shopping center, but literally business actually operates in a different framework. So what happened to us is that after I had just completed 2 years, we did a diagnosis with the assistance of the team from Property Point. And one thing that I really appreciate about their approach is that you're not there to market your company. They want you to actually display exactly where your business is so that they can diagnose exactly what kind of assistance and interventions they need to deploy to your company. It actually causes quite a lot of anxiety, but it's good for you. So literally the team is quite amazing. And I've learned quite a lot of things that I didn't know about my business and how to actually have a view that is actually not depicted by the landscape of quantity surveying per se, but looking at it as a business completely. Whether actually we are in a legal fraternity or accounting fraternity, but just looking at Azaro as a business, and not confining ourselves to being actually just quantity surveyors, So I can actually name a few. It's actually branding. The branding exercise was quite vigorous. I mean, they even deployed a consultant to actually mentor me as actually the leader or the front person in the company when people are talking about Azaro, even though I do have my partners in the business, but most people, when they want to engage in the business, they want to speak to the person who's leading the business. So it was very important to actually give me the tools to ensure that I am speaking to the right audience, and in terms of networking and business development and the strategy. You know, one of the things that we do, and I think most entrepreneurs or actually emerging entrepreneurs that we do, we always short-sighted. We never think beyond 3 years or 2 years. We think about the project that I'm doing with Pareto or Moana or whoever the client is. And beyond that, when someone asks, what is the pipeline? You know, you get stuck. And literally as an entrepreneur, that is a huge danger. It's a cancer that we have. Because literally, if I'm doing a project at the moment, it should not even be on my lips that I'm talking about it. I'm supposed to actually have exited and thinking about the future prospects of the business. Am I thinking of actually increasing my footprint, my growth plan, cash flow, not the one that is actually on the books or it's bankable, but what is in the pipeline? So literally all those elements, they came through Property Point. And I'm actually quite very happy that they even went further to say that you guys, as you are exiting or you becoming graduates, they have an alumni program, which I think it's quite exciting. So literally after you graduate, they don't actually throw you away and it's like, we've helped you, go and find yourself in the sea. And, you know, so literally they've gone beyond the, you know, I think it's actually goes back to they are continuously doing actually an evaluation of what works. And even though Sandy or Azaro has had 2 years of success with them, so literally, I think it's also becomes very, it becomes a burden for them when they hear a year later that I've regressed as a company, then all their work actually goes to waste. So literally such interventions, I think they play quite a big role in small businesses. And also for me, I guess also the landscape currently is actually with the pandemic, it's not helping, but literally there's interventions that they have. I mean, I connect with them almost every other week for them to check how the business is doing. And, you know, so that has been actually my experience with Property Point.
Thank you for that, Sandy. A great value in terms of their offering. And I think what's great about it also is the fact that it covers, Property Point covers various areas within the business, which then, you know, assists small businesses to have a broader approach or view of their overall businesses. Talking about COVID, NK, if I can just quickly come to you with a quick question on how COVID-19 has impacted your ability to carry out the program. There's been a lot of disruptions, especially if, you know, in instances where you have to have physical sessions. Have you experienced any negative impact due to COVID?
Thanks, Thuli, and thanks to Sandy for really unpacking what the program seeks to achieve in terms of supporting small businesses. And I would like to say that Azaro is an example of such, and what we try to do and how we want to empower and impact small businesses in the landscape. To answer your question, Thuli, we really haven't had much negative impact from COVID as a program, because for the safety of our beneficiaries, we've had to adapt our channels of engagement with our beneficiaries. We've had to start making use of digital channels to facilitate interventions, as well as to continue to offer support to our beneficiaries during this time. And we've seen that this is actually the time that they really need to engage with someone, because there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of changes what they need to look at strategically, and it sort of helps to have someone to bounce off those ideas with. And I think Sandy alluded to it, that we try to touch base with our businesses on a weekly basis or as often as we can. So we've had to rely quite heavily on video conferencing facilities, teleconferences, as well as normal phone calls and sometimes WhatsApp chats to just check up on the businesses, find out how they're doing, when they're available for a more structured catch up and call, and also emails as well. So we've really had to adapt to make sure that our businesses don't feel out of touch and they still feel the support now more than ever.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that. There's obviously a huge pipeline of businesses who would be looking to tap into various opportunities that are available within the property industry. Ms. Nxumisa, if I can just quickly come back to you. From a Moana perspective, we understand that a company can enroll as a supplier, or you also have an option for, I'm going to use the word, yes, tenders, where, it is an alternative in terms of companies participating with, within the opportunities that you have. Just maybe enlighten us in terms of the benefits that are on offer, depending on whether you're a supplier versus going via the tender process.
Thank you, Thuli. The benefits, Thuli, of being enrolled in our supplier database in the main is that preference is always given to suppliers that are registered, and only because we have a vetting process or an approval process of our service providers, and therefore being registered in the database, then you would have actually been vetted, and it makes it easier for us to do business with you as a service provider. Also, another benefit that is derived from being in our database is that because we're strong on building relationships, and we want to encourage or make sure that relationships that we build with our service providers are also sustainable. Therefore, being registered in the database makes it, again, easier for us to build a relationship. The relationships that we build are not relationships that we only just want to be confined to the Moana environment. Our efforts such that would like to see the growth of these businesses beyond the Moana property environment. So I think those are the main drivers of us encouraging suppliers to register on our database. I think you asked me a question about if one needs to be approved to bid in order for them to bid for any of our tenders. Yes, you'd have to be approved. This does not mean that if you're not registered in our database as we speak, that you are not able to respond to a tender. For example, you can actually respond to a tender if you see a tender that has been advertised, but before we engage with that service provider, then go through the vetting process and the registration would actually take place.
All right, thank you for that answer. And I think at this point, NK, we're just gonna come to you quickly just to see if we've got any questions for us. We did mention earlier that the session will be interactive, so we encourage the audience to pose questions, which we will then pose on to our speakers and hopefully get, be able to answer them satisfactorily. NK, do you have any questions that you've received on your end?
Yes, so for Nxumisa's side, it's just a follow-up on the question that she's answered now around what are some of those requirements to be on the database for Moana properties?
The requirements are the company details, your generic company details, your offerings, and most importantly, that your offerings for services that actually require affiliation to, for example, professional bodies, that you are registered with those bodies, and that you always have your registration, valid. And yeah, in the main, and that's about it. It's very simple, very straightforward, and it's an online process. So one can actually visit the Moana website, and there is a link to the supplier database where you then start the registration.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Nomisa. And the next question is to Sandy from Trifina. Trifina would like to ask Sandy, what advice would you give an upcoming quantity surveying firm like herself?
Thanks, Trifina, for that question. I think it's very important to first to just comply with the statutory body, which is the council. I know that she's actually professionally registered, and the statutory requirements of any company, just ensure that, your SIPs, your Department of Labor, your SARS, good standings, because literally most opportunities, once you don't actually comply with such, it makes it difficult for you to do business. And one of the elements that I would like to, or actually advise that I would give for a upcoming or startup business, is to seek for companies where there's synergies. Because when I started the company, I'm asked, how did I actually end up having projects, being appointed for projects where I feel that I don't have capacity. I have formed joint ventures, I have sub-consulted, or I've even contracted to professionals that I've worked with previously to capacitate, my teams. So some projects actually, it's a matter of actually not having the right skill set. It's very difficult for a small business to have all the skill sets. Even large corporations right now, it's very difficult to actually have in-house. So collaborations, they always work. And it makes it also even easier for risk, exposure in terms of your professional indemnity insurance, so that the client and also yourself as a consultant, so that you're not actually risk adverse.
Okay, thanks, Andy.
Is that it, NK, for now?
Yeah, that's it for now.
Okay.
I'd like to encourage everyone who's watching to please send us questions on the chat function, and we'll try to get to them. Okay.
All right. Sister Nomisa, I think we'll come back to you again, just expanding on the supplier conversational point. So what are some of the common errors you find on applications that are being submitted by your suppliers or small companies? And also just in terms of delivering quality work, which is also a point I would like us to explore with Sandy just a bit. But what are some of the issues that you see come up quite prominently in terms of companies that bid, and at the end of it, they're unable to produce work that's of an acceptable level of quality?
Thanks, Thuli. The most common, there's a number of them. So I'm just going to touch on a few of them, and I'll probably touch on the ones that are very common. One of them is the incompleteness of documents. Inaccurate responses, unsigned key forms like declaration forms, and is actually painful when you are actually evaluating a response and you find that a response is well written. It actually addresses almost everything that we actually require, but then you actually find that a key document is actually not signed, because then that takes a player out of the game immediately. It's sad. Non-compliance as well to submissions. lack of references, and these are things that will be stipulated in a tender document. And you find that we're struggling to, you wish you could actually, engage with the service providers to say, I mean, this is a non-starter, does not need a rocket scientist. Can you just make sure that this is completed? But at that point, when the bid has closed, there's nothing that we can do. So I think if you can summarize this, is some of them are, paying attention to detail. And I would encourage, service providers or potential service providers would like to do business with the Moana Properties, that, they take note of these things, and make sure that also all documents that have been requested are actually submitted and attached to the bid documents. So yes, truly in the main, those are mostly, those are the errors that we actually find in our applications.
Yeah. And then just in terms of the quality of work, Sibonisa, any comments on that in terms of how then these companies are then viewed the next time they apply for work, having been given an opportunity prior and being unable to deliver at levels or high levels of in terms of the quality?
Yeah, thanks, Julie. We have found that most often than not, there's lack of adherence to standards. For example, safety standards. There's lack of adherence to regulatory requirements, to time of delivery. When I'm saying time of delivery, I mean the agreed starting time of a project to the end or agreed end of a project that they're not met. And you find that there's also no communication. There's lack of communication, because surely if you start a project and at some point you can see that you're not going to meet the agreed timelines, then there are ways and means of addressing and engaging on such issues, which is, communication. But then we find that right at the tail end, when the expectation is that it should be a handover per time, and there's no handover. Signing off of projects, that there's delivery, but then right again at the tail end, there's no sign off. And these actually have, again, a negative impact on the relationships. And it's not like we are saying that we cannot, there are no interventions even during the delivery of a project, but if there is lack of communication, it becomes difficult. And lastly, we've also found that, even with the responses that we get from service providers, most often than not, prices are not market related. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Sibonisa. I'm going to pose a question, but I don't want you to respond as yet. Just in terms then of the shortfalls, pitfalls that you guys are experiencing, I just wanted to find out if you host any workshops or if there's any support then that Moana would then provide, just in terms of pulling the level, service level up slightly, and sort of empowering then your suppliers to say, fine, we've noticed or we've picked up that these are some of the shortfalls. How do you then meet that gap? But before you answer, I just want to quickly go to Sandy. Sandy, so what are your views or your thoughts, or also just in terms of your experience? I mean, as your company, over the last 5 years has grown, any developmental opportunities, or what advice would you give to companies who see these opportunities, but because they're so desperate to get the work, they apply only not to be able to produce at the required levels at the end?
Tuli, I think it goes back to my earlier response that the capacity is the first thing to analyze if it's adequate for that project or for the response. I think also, you know, in terms of what Sis Nomisa was talking about, in terms of not, you know, incomplete documents, it's from the onset, when a company is starting up, it's very important to invest in HR, because and having the right, let me say, the right resource to actually complete those documents and have a process that you put in place to ensure that after completion, there's actually checking, you know, because literally, as Nomisa was talking, actually, I could even feel the pain, you know, because it has happened. I'm also actually at fault. I have been in that process where you spend weeks of actually putting a document together, you know, only to find out you just dropped the ball on just actually initialing the whole document. It was there right at the beginning of it. And yet you have complied with everything else. And literally, it just throws you out, literally, you know. So for us, I think by virtue of being a quantity surveying firm, we deal with legal documents every day, tenders, literally, that we're a printing machine, you know. So dealing with incomplete work, quality assurance, you know, those inadequacies, we deal with them most of the time on projects, you know. Incomplete, you know, timelines or non-adherence to actually scope, you know, having lots of variations. But literally, we're always governed by the legal framework, whether being actually NEC or your JBCC. They make it very easy for us to actually comply or actually deal with matters within the ambits of that legal framework. So for us, when we deal with actually SMMEs or smaller companies, we have made sure that we don't give them more than what they can actually deliver, because everyone wants a R1 billion project, but literally my resources are actually a 10 million rand project. So credibility and your reputation, at the end of the day, your reputation actually goes, you know, the other way if you start actually making promises that you can't deliver. Workshops do help, but I just think that collaborations, they actually have been proven to work much more than actually anything else.
Thank you for that, Sandy. I think just before we continue with the next questions, NK, do you have any questions that have come through on your side?
Yes, I do have, Tuli, thanks. So I think this one would be directed to Sandy, but touching quite a bit on what Ncumisa said, especially around references, having references when you are applying for opportunities. So Ayanda is currently studying at UJ and she's decided to freelance. So at the moment she's pricing in the field of facilities management. And her question is around how does she put herself out there so that she's able to position herself in a way that once she's done with her qualification, she's able to then have built that track record that clients are looking for.
Yeah, okay. In terms of facilities management, because I do have quite a bit of experience with FM, so pricing with FM, as you know, FM starts from actually cleaning services, catering to aircon, you know, management, or let me say actually specialist services to IT, for example. So pricing for an FM company, it would be interesting exactly how she derives a pricing structure, because pricing for a building project is very easy. It's actually bricks and mortar, you know, or a BOQ. But if her services are purely for FM and she wants to position herself, I think it's best to actually approach the likes of your Bidvest, your service, I know that actually the likes of your Growth Point and even Moana does have actually an arm of FM, Eskom and all those companies, just to find out, it starts with also a conversation to find out what does it take to be in that company, because literally to make a generic statement that the approach of, ZenProp or Redefine would be applicable to an Eskom. I think that actually each and every company has got its own approach to actually FM. So I think for her, I'm not sure exactly if she can also respond, what exactly can she price when she says that FM? Is it actually IT services, or actually it's the holistic or the bouquet of services that actually pertain to FM? I know when I was working for TFMC, we were servicing mostly telecom. So there was actually a percentage based on actually just all the buildings, which is actually beneficial to the capital and operations expenditure of actually the entire organization. So if she can give me more depth, maybe I can actually advise, but I think it starts with also conversations of her target market.
Okay, and then the next question, thanks Andy. The next question is a combination of Zama and Buleng's questions directed to Ncumisa. So I think it's putting you on the spot a bit, but they want to find out, how does Moana assist or support women businesses in acquiring work? And then adding on to that, are there any opportunities available? And what are those opportunities?
Okay, thank you, Nkateko. We have a supplier development program that does not necessarily give focus to women-owned companies, but it does give assistance to companies. One, I think I'm touching first to the question that was raised by Tuli, and she actually asked that I don't respond immediately, but I think I'll respond to that as well. So where we actually pick up non-performance, we have a supplier development program that addresses those suppliers as an intervention for their growth and also for their sustainability. Insofar as supporting women-owned companies, our evaluation criteria when it comes to the preferential points actually gives a weighting to your women-owned companies, a weighting to companies that are owned by the youth, etc. So to go back to the question about whether we are doing anything actively insofar as women-owned companies, yes, we are, and that is taken care of in our evaluation criteria, one. And secondly, I think I did touch when I was just giving context to the establishment of Moana, and also the demography question that was raised earlier. That preference is literally, and this is contained in our policy, that preference is for us to do business with plus 51% Black-owned companies, and also companies that are Black women-owned.
Okay.
So it's a conscious effort, which is also included in the evaluation criteria to make sure that we achieve the objectives that are stipulated in our policy.
Okay. Thanks for that, Ncumisa. And then the next question is from Trifina. Trifina mentions that she's been registered on Moana's online database, and she also has a vendor number. However, she's not sure how to access the RFQs. How can she go about doing so?
I'm going to, if she is in the database, well, I would not know what her offering is. And therefore, I'm not going to give her a direct response, unfortunately, because we will always go out to the market when there's a need. And therefore, unfortunately, if the need does not match your offering, then we would not invite a service provider. But I would encourage that the companies actually make contact with us and engage with us, so that they know what it is that will be the plans for in the short term and also for the future, so that they can actually position themselves to enter the race, and hopefully they will make it. And unfortunately, most often than not, it's only 1 or 2 service providers that are appointed at any given point in time. But I would just encourage that we don't lose faith.
Okay, you mentioned quite an important point. So do you find, Ncumisa, when businesses apply to be on your database, that instead of choosing a focus area, they sort of want to tick all the boxes, and then as such, they sort of miss out on opportunities, especially where their focus currently is? For an example, I would say I'm a painter, I'm an electrician, I'm a plumber, I do catering, I do interior decor. Do you then find that you have those companies on your databases, which then miss out on opportunities because firstly, they're not sure of what their value proposition is. So they end up just ticking all the boxes just to be able to access some opportunity. And what's your advice with that approach?
Nkateko, you know, you're so spot on. And I actually saw Sandy also like smiling. There is a term that we use. I come from the township. I grew up in a township that says we have general dealers. We used to have shops, by the way, in the townships in the olden days that were called general dealers. So it's a very, very familiar term, I think, in our environment. And yes, to answer your question, Nkateko, we do have many of those, which then, you know, that raises eyebrows to say exactly what is your area of speciality, if any, for that matter, or are you just taking a chance? And if the supplier, you know, we have a feeling that, you know, a supplier is taking a chance because we cannot position that service provider because they're all over the show, it then makes it very difficult for us to even invite them in, unless if in the registration forms, one is very specific that these are the areas of speciality, and perhaps that a service provider has affiliation with others and in offering other services, but that does not normally come out. And therefore it does put us in a very awkward position. And advice would be, it's important that you actually first define who you are, identify where your strengths are, and highlight those. And you have affiliations outside of your core business that you make sure that is clearly communicated. And then it actually makes it easier for us to engage. And without that clarity, it actually puts us in a very awkward position. And even where we could actually help, we're unable to do so because we don't know who you are. Thank you.
If I can maybe just bring in Sandy in here, looking back at the days of when you started Azaro, how would you then advise smaller businesses to say, at that point where you're almost tempted to be everything to everybody, how do you streamline and how do you build a focus around your skill and your expertise? And how do you then drive that home to make sure that you're building a sustainable business?
Nkateko, I was very clear from day one where my focus was going to be at, and you can you can imagine or appreciate that when I started, I only had my CV to work with. So my 15 years of experience in the industry is what I used to actually engage previous clients or people that I've worked with who I call as my, industry peers and also the mentors. So literally, I could never actually go to the market and say that I want to build a bridge and yet I've built a shopping center. So literally, that's a mismatch of skills, and also remember your marketing tools is what you are capable of. So literally, even if you are doing business development of looking for new opportunities to diverse, But literally there has to be a strategy even with that to say that I am actually, you know, collaborating with a certain company so that they can transfer the skills. And fortunately, our sector codes do actually allow for that. And it's empowering to see that it's very clearly defined that the bigger companies or the companies that have got a skill set of over a couple of decades, that they have to transfer it to other companies. So for Azaro to actually even enter the space of mining, it was actually, you know, we approached the other companies that we knew that were in the space for a couple of decades. And on completion of those projects, that's when I could actually use that CV to say that I've worked with company X, Y, and Z, and we've completed it on time. However, we were actually mentored by these companies that become your reference. Because literally there's three things for me that I found very, very pivotal. The references are very important for most companies when you're doing business with them. And the CV actually is also very important. Thirdly, your conduct, because literally the numbers don't lie, but at the end of the day, clients want to know how you conducted yourself. You know, cultural experience. People don't actually, most clients, they want to work with people that can actually adopt to the culture of their organization, because at the end of the day, it's not about us, it's actually about delivery of the project, which is more important than anything else. So I think it's a very difficult balance for some actually consultants, but if actually with a little bit of practice and also commitment, we all can get it right.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Sandy. Ayanda has come back to us to say she prices in cleaning services, hygiene services, pest control, gardening and catering. She really wants to branch out into the construction industry because she wants to cater for both in the future.
Okay, the first part, that one is not that it's an easy one, but I can actually say very quickly how she can approach that one. We've got so many actually property management companies that are looking for smaller companies to actually give them an opportunity. And also it goes back to Trifin as well. Some of the clients, what I found in my business development, some clients do actually allocate a certain percentage for small businesses. You know, you'll have projects that are from 0 to about 5 million, where they will say that they want to actually give opportunity to small businesses. And the more of those projects that you do, it becomes much more easy to actually elevate yourself to this next level, you know. So most parastatals and some of the commercial, you know, private companies, they do give actually preference to smaller businesses, and also municipalities, where they will say that they're not looking for your big corporates, you know, your big companies, you know, of consultants, you know, with probably with a turnover of a certain actually margin. So I think those ones are the, you know, what you call it, low hanging fruits. So if she can actually capitalize on that while she's working on the bigger plans. But for the other lady, Ayanda, property management companies, she can never go wrong when it comes to cleaning services and all these other ones, brass cutting and all of that. In terms of building construction pricing, I have found that people that are able to price, it's people that have worked for construction companies, because there's a department within actually construction companies that is called estimating division. That's where the pricing happens. I've been a QS for a contractor. It's no actually child's game, but literally I spent 9 months and I said goodbye. So my 20 years minus 9 months is actually just that. So you know, if actually her passion is in pricing, well and good enough. But if she wants to build those skills of pricing for construction projects, she's likely to find mentorship or a program, or even apply for a job that is within a construction company, I think, or a development company. She's best placed in those kind of environments.
Okay. And then just the last one to you, Sandy. Are you open? There's a question from Buleng to ask if you're open to mentoring 1 or 2 women-owned businesses from WPN.
Sure, Tuli knows very best that I've spent actually 10 years, a decade at WPN. Some of you know that I'm the past chair. So literally, I think I've paid my school fees. I still have actually about 7 of them that others have graduated, and we placed them in corporate companies, and also the assistance of Property Point, you know, to actually be a sponsor in some of the, you know, fundraising structures that we have actually established. So every now and again, I do put it out there when I have a space to take 1 or 2, but I'm taking a break now currently from actually taking any more. I'm just finishing off this year with the ones that I had when I was at WPN. I'll always be a member of WPN because I'm the past chair. I'll spend my 10 years there. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done. And I think for me, the past 10 years has been actually graduates and also students, chapters, you know. But currently, I think because I've got a little bit of information and skills that I can actually impart when it comes to entrepreneurship, I think my passion right now is to actually empower startup companies and just share my journey. It might not be actually applicable to everyone, or actually it will not be a copy and paste to other companies, but I do have access to other entrepreneurs who have done phenomenally well and that are not in the quantity surveying space. You've got Zola Ndwasa, you know, Jade Capital Partners, your Nonkunjona, quite a lot of entrepreneurs, very powerful women, your Muteng, Ipeleng, who has just actually published that she has actually joined forces with Malan Padayachi. So there's quite a number of powerful women, male and females, who have actually done phenomenally well in the entrepreneurship space. So let's see what the future holds. Maybe Property Point might bring another segment where we actually start as alumni to actually start imparting our journeys. Mine is still a baby, but literally I've got quite a lot to share, and also with WPN as well, you know, to ensure that we support each other and elevate each other's statuses.
Thanks, Sandy. And then to Numisa and Bill, Sandy, they would like to know if you can share your contact details.
Of course, I'll be more than happy to.
Numisa?
Yep. I think we had agreed that there is going to be an email address that will be forwarded or made available for ease of communication between ourselves and whoever else would like to engage beyond the session. Yeah.
Okay.
So yes.
Back to you, Tuli.
Thanks, NK. I think just on that point, NK, please touch on this as well, on your finishing remarks. But from a WPN perspective, please email our info@wpn.co.za, and then we'll provide you with those contact details. So it's been quite an interesting conversation, and I see we've gone beyond our time. But just to close things off, I'm gonna start off with Numisa. One question I wanted to ask you before asking for your closing remarks, Numisa, was just with regards to where the opportunities get published. I know you publish them on your website. Is there anywhere else where we can go, or entrepreneurs can go to find those opportunities, particularly when you do have specific work that you're looking to recruit or to onboard suppliers for? What medium do you use to publish those? And also, please let us have your closing remarks.
Thanks, Tuli. For now, it's just our website. Remember, if I can just remind the audience that I mean, we were launched in 2016, as I said, March. So we're basically like 4 years old. But the intentions are to increase the coverage. We have not done so, but as we increase our coverage, the communication will always be via the website. So I'll encourage people to actually keep on, going into the website just to check what is going on, or just to keep themselves updated with the developments within the Moana properties. Is there a specific question, or do you just want me to close off as
yes.
Max?
Yeah, so just in terms of the operating environment, thanks to COVID, with closing remarks and some of, what call it motivation or parting words to entrepreneurs that have joined us this afternoon.
I mean, with COVID in mind, I mean, if we are all adversely been affected by the environment. We've seen offices or office space, the vacancy rate is going up. We do expect that, I think, the strain, I think we will feel it for a foreseeable future, as companies are actually also getting used to the virtual space, which is something that we're not familiar with, but we've actually had to hit the road running. And therefore, on the same breath, that perhaps it is an opportune time for your small and your medium enterprises to probably explore opportunities for themselves. For an example, that the office space, because we have a high rate of vacancies, and therefore my expectation is that perhaps even the rentals will probably go down. That people who are looking for space could actually share the space. The rates will probably go down, and therefore it's an opportune time. But yes, it's actually very tough for those who are actually small and medium. I mean, many of them are having to close shop, but those who can still survive, it's a point of opportune time to say, perhaps let's look at better working environments, but not, the approach should not be an approach where you're doing things on your own, but perhaps start collaborating with others to take advantage of the situation. I don't believe that it's all doom and gloom. It feels like it is painful, but I'm sure we will go through it. We've also seen that with on the industrial side of things, that environment still remains strong, because there's a demand for storage space. There's also a demand for distribution centers to accommodate your online sales. So much as we're saying that, or feeling the pinch, there are areas that are gaining, and therefore the survival is more or less, on the positive side. And lastly, from my side, to say that, it's much as we've highlighted the fact that, yes, there's non-compliance in this and that, I think we're all on a learning curve, and that I think we should just keep strong. And yes, this shall pass too, and just keep the faith. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sister Nomisa. Sandy, your parting words?
Thanks, Julie. During this period, I think what is very important is to leverage on our digital platforms. It's very digitally influenced. The webinars, communication, and business development doesn't have to stop because we actually all on lockdown. There's various ways that we can actually, reach out to prospective clients or developments, or even increasing our footprints. So for me, I would like to say to entrepreneurs, instead of, I think it has actually, it has been one of those periods where we have to evolve or even probe ourselves how to elevate our approach of doing business. As Sis Nomisa just said, that actually the vacancy is quite high. Collaboration, sharing of office space, and actually finding each other's synergies, how best we can actually help each other. So I feel that more than anything, when it comes to operations and strategy, leveraging on the digital platform is very, very crucial at this point. We're still in the early stages, so literally the 4 or 5 months of being locked down, we can't actually take a view of how we're going to be operating in a year's time, but it's very clear that we're not going to go back to actually our conventional way of doing business. So a short-term view currently to actually just having those engagements with your peers or actually businesses that you can collaborate with, I think it's very important. Entrepreneurs, they need to speak to each other. I know that actually when we were still operating from offices, we're always on the road. Everyone, it's all about actually, you know, catching each other on you know, whether it's meetings or actually networking events. But currently, it's very important that we make use of the digital platform. And I hope that as we develop and we improve in our restrictions, that we will start to find a better way of doing business. But I'm already actually very, very optimistic on the developments that have happened in just a month or two, as opposed to actually when we were at level 5.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Sandy. Yeah, very, very informative and also empowering. So I do hope that the audience has found value in the discussion we've had this afternoon, and also by virtue of having Sandy and Mrs. Nomisa here, I think they definitely are putting themselves out there. So we do appreciate their willingness to serve and to also, you know, be part of the initiative to empower up and coming entrepreneurs. So please reach out to them. You know, use them, abuse them, maybe not. But you know, this is why we do these sessions, because we want you to be able to tap and get those opportunities. So from the WPN side, I would like to thank the speakers. I would like to thank the audience. A special thank you to Property Point for affording us the platform for us to bring this very important conversation to our members. Thank you for the opportunity to also present and to participate with the Property Point usual participants. And on that note, I'll hand over to you, Nkateko.
Thank you, Nomisa. Just in closing from my side, I'd really like to urge entrepreneurs to prepare for opportunities that they seek out. Ensure that you comply with the requirements set out by your potential client. And also, if you're bidding for R1 million contract, ensure that in terms of capacity to deliver, you are ready. And also ensure that you have access to the skills required. And if you don't have those skills in-house, be sure to have a reliable pool externally to source from. And the last aspect, which tends to be neglected, is around finance. Try and make sure that financial resources are available or within reasonable access. You don't want to spend 6 months of your 6 weeks of your 6 months contract trying to source funding. That will eat up into your delivery time and can also affect the quality of your work, as well as the potential to access additional work. That said, thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon. We hope you found the session informative. If you missed anything or you would like to recap, please head over to our YouTube channel, where you'll be able to share the session with your networks as well. Our next Equip session will be on the 13th of August at 2:30, and we'll be talking about the elements of building brand equity for your business. You don't want to miss this one. Our guest will be Iggy Sateche, the head of branding and marketing at Pareto Holdings, and it will be hosted by Naledi Mushiane, who is an established entrepreneur and the MD of MBH Investments. To ensure that you don't miss the session, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube at Entrepreneurship to the Point. You can also subscribe to our newsletter at www.ettp.co.za to stay informed, as we'll also be hosting our flagship Access to Markets and Funding session soon, so do stay tuned. For any information that you might require after this afternoon session, you can contact us. You can contact us at info@propertypoint.org.za. To all the women who joined us this afternoon, happy Women's Month. We see you and we celebrate you. From me, Nkateko, till we see each other again, take care and keep safe.